If you are working class and you want to work in fashion, it is so possible. Don't let anyone make you feel like the only way to get into fashion is by being a rich middle class white person. Anyone can make it in the industry. I've always known that I wanted to work in fashion, but I had no idea how I would do it. The first step I took was I decided to study fashion at university. I don't think you need a degree to become a fashion journalist. I got a degree because I didn't have any connections in the industry, and I felt like at least if I have education on my side while I figure out how to get in the industry, I have a baseline to begin with. I kind of wish I'd gotten a degree in the art sector in a different industry, maybe graphic design, interior design. One of the best journalists in the world, she said, if you want to work in fashion and you want to be the best in fashion, study everything else besides fashion.
If you're interested in fashion, learn about everything except fashion. Politics, art, painting, anything except fashion.
I studied fashion for 4 years, and then in my third year, I did a placement year. That is my second piece of advice. If you can, while you're at university, either do a placement year or intern. That is your entry point to the industry, getting experience and building your network. For me, I did a YouTube internship with a lingerie company. And then from there, I did my placement year for a full year where I worked at a company doing social media for them, which is kind of my entry level into journalism. I wanted to be a fashion designer, but for whatever reason, social media opportunities kept finding their way to me. And then we got into a pandemic. And then in the pandemic, I had a choice to make. Do I want to continue studying fashion design, or do I want to switch to fashion journalism? I didn't really have a big home space to be able to make clothes at home. So I decided to switch to fashion journalism in my final year of university. And then we're going to get into the juicy bit of how I actually entered the industry. I started applying for jobs 11 months before I graduated because I wanted to finish university and go straight into my graduate job. My advice to anyone, if you are a working class person and you don't know anyone in the industry, you have to get on LinkedIn. That is how you're going to get your name out there. And I got my CV together. One thing I'll say, it's okay to have a colourful CV. My lecturers at uni always told me, have a black and white CV. Every job I've had, and I've worked for some of the biggest companies in the world, I've always had a colourful CV. I used to work at the business of fashion, and the CV that I had, my CV was tie-dye, coloured in the background. It was purple, blue and black, which goes against the advice that I was given. But I went ahead and did it anyway. Sometimes it's okay to break the rules. In my mind, I was thinking, this is a creative role. Why am I going to give them a black and white CV? I need to show them what they're going to get out of me, which is a creative person. So that's another tip. Make sure your CV reflects the person that you are and your creative skills. Get on Photoshop or Illustrator and show them what you're made of. With LinkedIn, I made sure I had a professional headshot. I filled out all of my experience, and I didn't just put in the headline, social media intern. I made sure to really show my skill set, and I'd list all my daily responsibilities, and then I'd insert pictures of the work that I did on my internship, which is something I rarely see people do on LinkedIn. When you insert your experience, you can attach media. That is a perfect way to turn your LinkedIn profile into a portfolio. Add as many images and videos as possible. The other thing I did while I was at university is I completed online courses, which you can also put on your LinkedIn and your CV to bump up your experience. So I did a Photoshop course, and I have a professional qualification given to me by Adobe. That's the next thing I was going to say. Always describe yourself as the job you want. So I would say I'm a social media manager. I would never say I'm a student, I'm looking for a job. Absolutely not. You need to speak with confidence. When I would go to job interviews, I would say, hi, I'm Menashe. I have 4 years of experience in social media. And I would list out all the internships that I've done. Whereas what I think a lot of students do is they go in and they're like, oh, I don't have much experience. I've only done 1 year, or I've only done 6 months. Absolutely not. You need to go in there and treat yourself like a rock star. They need you. They put this job advert out because they need you. That's the attitude you need to go into the job interview with. Not, oh my goodness, I would be so lucky to work here. Yes, of course you will be grateful to work there, but at the end of the day, they need your skills and you need to tell them why you're the perfect candidate. Own your confidence. Back to LinkedIn. All the jobs I've ever gotten in journalism, I got them from LinkedIn. LinkedIn is where all the professional high-end companies put their jobs. Chanel, Chanel, Dior, the business of fashion, which is where I worked for 2 years, High Snobiety, which is where I worked for 3 years. You would think this video is an advertisement for LinkedIn. I promise you it's not. I'm not sponsored, but I would love to be. So once I did all of that, the interning, the LinkedIn networking, jobs started to come to me. I literally had 4 jobs lined up when I graduated because of all the work that I put in. That's enough about LinkedIn. So what I would say when you go to interviews, make sure to really showcase your skills, show your enthusiasm, show your excitement, and really play up why you want to work there. So when I got my job at the business of fashion, the CEO Imran Ahmed said to me the reason he hired me was because I was the most excited person in the room. That is something you can't manufacture. A lot of people go into fashion thinking they have to be very buttoned up and serious, and that is not the case at all. Yes, there are a lot of people who work in fashion who are like that, and maybe I'll do a video on my experience working in fashion as a black working class woman, because honey, the tea is hot if we get into that, okay? Be yourself. Don't be afraid to show your personality at your interview. So for example, when I would go to interviews, I literally would wear red lipstick because that's me. Whereas a lot of people online would be like, oh, that's unprofessional. You need to keep it plain, wear a blazer. Absolutely not. I would wear this to a job interview if I had one tomorrow. I want them to hire me because of who I am, not because of who I'm pretending to be. Definitely be yourself. But if you get your LinkedIn, sorry, I'm back to talking about LinkedIn. If you get your LinkedIn so good to the level that I had it when I was about to graduate, jobs will come to you. When I was at the end of my university year, I had employers messaging me trying to give me a job. If you get your online persona so good, people will start emailing you. And I've had that to this day where people go on my online portfolio and they will contact me because they want me to work for them. So that's another thing I would recommend, is get yourself an online portfolio and make sure on there it has a contact form. So if people see your work, they can message you or email you and ask for your services. The website I would recommend is Adobe Portfolio because it's the easiest, it's the most user-friendly, and it's the cheapest. I believe I pay £21 for my website every month, and that also includes Photoshop subscription. I'm currently in the process of getting a new job in journalism. Yeah, I'll get into why I'm looking for a new job in another video. But I'm the tea is so hot. Working in journalism, honestly, it's a roller coaster. It's the best, and it's something. We'll get into that in another video. Once you've got your CV together, your LinkedIn is popping, your portfolio is off the chain, you've put in all your interning content and all your experience content. One thing I would recommend doing as well for your portfolio is create fake projects that you can put in there. So for example, when I was about to graduate uni applying for jobs, I didn't have loads of companies that I'd worked for. So what I would do is I would think of a company that I would want to work for, and I would create a project that I would have done for them. Come up with your own idea that you would pitch to them. So let's just say your dream company is Cosmopolitan magazine. Come up with an essay and the images that you would use on the site, and then put that on your portfolio as your work that you've done, because it's still work you've completed even though it hasn't been published. If you can, find a mentor who is willing to give you industry advice. Drink every time I say when I was at uni. When I was at uni, I joined a mentoring program. I was matched up with someone who worked at Microsoft as a social media manager. He helped me get my graduate job working at the business of fashion. That massively helped me. He was able to give me real-time advice when I was applying for jobs. Every week I would meet up with him. I would give him my CV. He would give me corrections and I would implement them. Then the following week we would discuss the changes that I've made. Any interviews that I wanted to practice, he would do practice questions with me, and then he would tell me how I could have answered better. I'd highly recommend finding a mentor. And again, this is something you can do on LinkedIn. You could message someone and say, hey, I really want to do what you do. I really admire your work. Would you be willing to meet up with me once a week or once every 2 weeks and mentor me? That's why I'm such a big advocate for LinkedIn. But you can also do this on Instagram and any other platform where you see someone who you admire and you really want their advice. Don't be hesitant to email people. At the end of the day, it's your career. I was really fortunate that I had companies messaging me, but for the average person, they're not going to have that. You have to go out there and look for opportunities. I think the reason I had employers messaging me is because I really put a lot of effort into my LinkedIn and my online presence, to the point where it was like, you're kind of silly if you don't hire this girl, because she clearly is very passionate and very dedicated. If you hire her, she's going to put her all into her role, because look at how much effort I'd put into my portfolio, my LinkedIn, my online presence. And another thing that I would say as a journalist now is I would really recommend having a strong social media presence. So I've just started this YouTube channel, but I also have a TikTok. I recently went viral on TikTok. My most recent video on TikTok has 200,000 views. So I would highly recommend getting on TikTok or Instagram and making video content about the topics that you want to cover as a journalist, because you just never know who could watch your videos and email you to do content for them. And that's something that's happened for me this week. People have seen my video and they're contacting me to do work for them or collaborate with them. So definitely get yourself out there. Don't be afraid to have your face on the internet. I feel like we're past that phase of being afraid of the internet. Everyone's online, and even if you're not putting your face out there like me, your digital footprint still exists in other ways, so you might as well use it to your advantage. So that is how I got into fashion with no connections: LinkedIn, a good portfolio, and having a digital presence. I think my final tip that I would say, if you are a student in your final year, I highly recommend applying for competitions with Graduate Fashion Week. That massively helped my portfolio. It's a good thing to have on your CV that you're winning competitions, and I had the opportunity to present my graduate project in front of people who work at Gucci, which is just amazing. I won another competition with Graduate Fashion Week where I had the opportunity to have my work displayed on Oxford Street on the flannel store. I highly recommend applying for creative competitions. There's also other competitions where you can actually win cash prizes to fund your creative projects. There's a competition called Debase and they fund creative projects. So I will link that in the description and put that on the screen for you guys. But I hope this video was helpful. If you have any questions, leave them below, and make sure to follow me on TikTok or Instagram because I post there more frequently. I'm going to try and post on YouTube once a week. My schedule at the moment is just a bit wild because I'm applying for jobs, going for job interviews while also still working full time. But yeah, thank you for watching, and I hope that this video could help and encourage anybody. If you are working class and you want to work in fashion, it is so possible. Don't let anyone make you feel like the only way to get into fashion is by being a rich middle class white person or whatever. Anyone can make it in the industry. You just have to have tenacity, excitement, experience, and put your work out there. Somebody will hire you, and it might even be me one day. You never know.